Good morning, everybody, and good evening to some of you joining us from overseas. On behalf of Manila House, this is Bambina Olivares, the Director of Programming, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, which is quite fitting for Women's Month, called Wanderlust, all about women and travel. Let me just remind everyone that Manila House is a safe space. We are open for outdoor dining in compliance with IATF and LGU regulations. We invite you to also avail of our takeaway service, which is open to the public. You can order online via manilahouseinc.com, via Grab or Food Panda, or by calling us on 0917-816-3685. Members, your F&B vouchers may be used for takeaway orders. Now back to regular programming. Travel is one of the joys in life that the pandemic has unfortunately curtailed. Some of us have managed to get away for short trips, but the idea of hopping on an airplane and hitting the south of France, for instance, or going on safari, or even just flying off to Hong Kong for the weekend seems like a far-fetched dream these days, thanks to lockdowns and quarantines, and of course, the threat of getting infected with COVID. Some have been luckier than others by carefully planning their trips, choosing the safest destinations, and taking advantage of price drops. Our three boutique travel specialists with us today will tell us more about the reality of travel in a changed world. They will also talk about being a woman traveler with an appetite for adventure. So let me introduce our panelists briefly. Tesa Totengco is a relative newcomer to the industry, but is a seasoned traveler. Before setting up Travels with Tesa, she had a long career in fashion in New York, but she has actually come full circle, having started her working life in the city as a travel agent. Tesa is also a travel and leisure travel advisory member. A travel designer for over 15 years, Hong Kong-based Perez-Sala of Special Personal Sojourns, or SPS Travel, crafts privately guided, tailor-made trips for her clients located all around the world. She has personally visited 6 out of the 7 continents, saving Antarctica for a big milestone birthday celebration. But Africa remains her favorite. She has clocked up to 20 safaris to date, and she is also one of our members at Manila House. Yessa Caparas is a senior travel consultant for A2A Safaris, a boutique travel agency that specializes in organizing tailor-made luxury safaris to the pristine and untouched wilderness areas of Africa. An ex-fashion buyer, entrepreneur, and indoor cycling instructor when she's not designing trips, Yessa is not one to shy away from adventure and pursuing the road less taken. Her philosophy in travel is to get out of one's comfort zone with luxury and style. So just before we begin, some house rules. This webinar is being recorded and will be up on the Manila House YouTube day or so. We will have a Q&A after the presentation, so please use the chat box or the Q&A box to send us your questions and we'll get to them. Now, to start off, let me turn you over to Tesa.
So, hi everyone. I'm coming to you from New York City. I want to thank Manila House and Bambina Olivares for inviting me to speak on this panel. I'm Tesa Totengco, owner of Travels with Tesa. I was born in Bacolod City and I went to college in Ateneo, Manila. I have 2 famous siblings, Rafi Totengco, the accessory designer, and Maricar Totengco, the model. A year after graduating college, I moved to Manhattan and have been living here since. I'm first generation immigrant in my family. I live in NoHo with my husband Michael and our rescue dog Nala. Between us, we have 3 sons, Alex, Ryan, and Abraham. I worked as a travel agent in the 90s before pursuing a career as a fashion executive. And even then, I was always in charge of planning travel for family and friends. They trusted my taste, enthusiasm, and attention to detail. I planned a trip to Cuba in 2017 and brought 6 friends along. We walked the tobacco fields in Viñales, rode horseback in the Valley of Silence, supported local artists and chefs in Havana, and explored the colonial city of Trinidad. This is when I realized that planning travel was my passion. It was my aha moment. And this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. In 2018, I began to visualize what I wanted my life to be like. And not long after, I found my host agency, Gifted Travel Network, and started my own travel business. Why Travels with Tesa? Because people have come up to me and asked, how do I travel with Tesa? I specialize in luxury travel. Luxury is knowing that every detail for even the most complex itinerary is both meticulously planned and seamlessly executed. My clients are able to relax and enjoy the planning process instead of being overwhelmed by it. With my extensive contacts around the world, my clients know that they're always in good hands. Plus, no matter where in the world they are, I'm always just one phone call away. My expertise is in designing thoughtful journeys that lead to transformative experiences and deeper bonds with those you travel with and love. If you believe that travel opens hearts and minds, I can help you realize your dream vacation. Here are some of the finer experiences you can expect from my itinerary. Luxury accommodations. I especially love boutique hotels and surprising my clients with VIP amenities. Art and history. Having a private art tour in the destination's museum is, I believe, key to understanding culture and history. Food, not just any food, but fantastic food. Whether it's a Michelin starred restaurant or street food. I had my best taco in Merida, Mexico from a family roadside restaurant that only opened for breakfast and lunch. And why not take a cooking class while you're at it? Learning a new cuisine is the best souvenir. Private tours, because luxury is going at your own pace. Local interaction. When you give yourself space and time during travel, you'll have the opportunity and privilege of meeting locals who'll turn your trip from ordinary to the unexpected. And a little shopping. I'm a shopper at heart and love seeking out artists and artisans whose skills have been passed down from generation to generation. When you plan a trip with a virtuoso travel advisor, you're unlocking a world of in the know expertise, unbelievable travel perks, and access to a well edited portfolio of the best brands in the business. I'm proud to be a virtuoso travel advisor. Last year, I was invited to join the Travel and Leisure's Travel Advisory Board. This group, which shares its industry knowledge with the editors of TNL, oversees tens of thousands of individual trips annually. In the 19th annual A-List, Travel and Leisure showcased their picks of the 148 top agents and tour operators in the business. I am proud to be in the 2020 A-List. Travel with Tessa in 2022, you can travel with me on one of my signature trips to destinations on my Wanderlust. If you want unique and curated experiences, this is the trip for you. It is limited to a small group. You'll be treated to special and private experiences that will leave you forever changed. Thank you for your time. Visit my website, travelswithtessa.com, and for more information, and follow me on Instagram, Travels with Tessa.
Thank you, Tessa. Now, shall we hear from Shai? We go to you, or should we go to?
Sure. Okay, I'll go next. And first, I would like to share this quick 3-minute video to give everyone a snapshot of what SPS Travel is all about. So hope you enjoyed the video.
Thanks so much, Shai. Wow.
Yeah. I hope you heard it.
Great.
Hope you heard everything without any issues. And well, thanks for having me. I'm Shai Perez-Sala. I was born and raised in Manila, Philippines. After graduating from university, I moved to China, where I lived for 6 years prior moving to Hong Kong, where I've been for the last 18 years. I am the founder of Special Personal Sojourns, or SPS Travel. I specialize in tailor-made trips all around the world, especially to places places which are quite difficult and daunting and challenging to get to, or places which are relatively unknown and misunderstood. I just love to challenge and change people's perspectives and open their minds to new experiences and new cultures. Not last but not the least, I'm also wife to Jay and mother to Kira, who's 8 years old, but she acts like she's 80 years old on most days.
Thanks so much. Yessa, shall we go to you?
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thanks so much, Bambina, for the lovely introduction. I'm Yessa Caparas, and I'm a senior travel consultant in the Manila office of A2A Safaris, where I have been specializing in Africa for the past 5 years now. So A2A Safaris is a global travel company that specializes in designing luxury safaris and journeys to Africa, Latin America, and Antarctica. The company was founded in 2002 in Hong Kong by two Filipino ex-investment bankers, Jose Cortez and Victor Dizon, and was the first company in Asia to specialize in arranging luxury safaris to Africa. We have a very strong passion for Africa and conservation, and we live and breathe this every day. We have deep knowledge and expertise in arranging safaris and trips in the African continent. Over the years, we have developed strong relationships with safari camps, lodges, guides, conservationists, and the various players in the safari industry. We pull all of this together to create the most unique and special life-changing journeys for our clients. So we arrange safaris to over 20 countries across the African continent, from the forests of the Congo to the deserts of Namibia, from the swamps of the Okavango Delta in Botswana to the mountain highlands of Ethiopia. Our itineraries feature the continent's vast and diverse landscapes with a wide range of activities and experiences. In 2014, we expanded into Latin America, where we cover 14 destinations with the same vision of unique experiences in pristine wilderness areas, stunning landscapes, rich cultures, and world-class food and wine offerings. Here we design journeys to iconic places such as the glaciers of Patagonia, the wildlife-rich Pantanal, the otherworldly Altiplano, the Amazon rainforests, and beyond. Taking off from Patagonia, we pushed further south to the last continent, Antarctica. We arranged luxury voyages and expeditions deep into the Antarctic Circle, South Pole, Falkland Islands, and South Georgia, home to stunning polar landscapes and unique wildlife. So starting from a two-person team in Hong Kong 19 years ago, we now have 4 offices across the globe in Hong Kong, Singapore, Manila, and the US, with a team of over 30 persons. And we have representatives in China, Australia, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, France, and South Africa. So conservation is really at the very heart of all of our safaris and our journeys. It's one of the reasons why we even exist and why we continue to exist and why we were established. We support conservation efforts to help preserve wilderness areas, local communities, and research and science efforts around the 3 continents that we cover. We offer a wide range of accommodation styles, from treehouse suites, as you can see in the picture, in the middle of the Okavango Delta, to modern igloos on the rim of a crater, to boat houses that appear to be stranded on the beach. We carefully curate and handpick these diverse and exclusive accommodation options for our portfolio. And we visit and experience these properties to ensure that they are up to our standards and that we can confidently recommend them to our clients. We have the same vision for our Latin America offerings to reflect the vast and varied landscapes of the continent, from the Amazonian riverboats to luxury haciendas, mountain lodges in Patagonia to airstream campers in the Bolivian salt flats. In a largely male-dominated industry, I'm happy to share that Africa has blazed the trail for women representation, where it's no longer uncommon to see women spearheading, guiding conservation and research work efforts. Here you'll see the Black Mambas in their camouflage uniform, South Africa's first all-women anti-poaching team who protect wildlife, especially rhinos. The safari guide smiling into the camera works at the first female-run camp in Tanzania's central Serengeti called Dunia. And one of the leading wildlife researchers from Namibia, MC Verwey, is seen in the photo above. And she actually visited us here in Manila a few years back, where she gave a talk about her work to our team and clients. So I'm very proud to belong to a team of more than 30, where half are women. And although we still have a long way to go on our journey of female empowerment, may we continue to forge on. This concludes my short presentation, and thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Bambina.
Thanks so much, Yessa. Just very good. Thanks so much, Yessa. Thanks to all our panelists today. So this is just going to be like a really informal discussion about travel and where we are today. I'm sure we're all itching to get out, especially with the new round of lockdowns and restrictions. You know, we're feeling right before Easter or Holy Week, we're feeling a little bit, you know, like cabin fever is rising. So let's, you know, I just wanted to start a conversation about where travel is going, and if when will we be able to travel as freely as we used to in the past. So, you know, let's start off that way.
So I'm going to start from a US perspective. Vaccinations are really going well. I've had my first shot. I am due for my second shot end of the month, so I'll have been fully vaccinated. There is a very strong push for people to start traveling, like once they're vaccinated. So from the agency perspective, we're seeing a lot of bookings, and in fact, some agents are seeing higher the comps from 2019. So, vaccination is key, obviously, to restart travel.
But do you know if they're going to start demanding for a vaccine? You have to show your vaccine certificate, or?
It really depends. I think some of the cruise lines, for example, are mandating vaccinations for passengers to have been fully vaccinated. I know that Iceland is open and is welcoming people who have been vaccinated already, or if not, show that they have the antibodies. Greece is opening up May 14, but if you have been fully vaccinated, you can even go earlier. So one by one, people are, countries are opening up. Peru's opened up. And it's for us, for the American traveler. I'm planning trips for my clients for the summer, and it's not just domestic anymore. It's definitely international.
Do you have anything to add to that? Shai, has your business picked up?
It's slowed down, and it's picking up in 2022. I've moved most of my trips to 2022. Majority of my clients are still based here in Asia, and the vaccine rollouts have been very slow or non-existent in some areas. So definitely the West. So it's US, the UK, just some parts of Europe will be leading the charge in terms of travel. And I do have clients in the US who are raring to go and they've been vaccinated. So we're planning on that last quarter of this year. But I am not overly optimistic when it comes to traveling from this region. As long as Asia and the rest of the world's vaccine rollouts are not as fast as the US, Chile, UK, Seychelles, Israel, until the rest of the world gets their rollouts underway, I think many of the borders will still be closed to these leisure tourists. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, for us, fortunately, we have had clients traveling regularly since December, and African borders actually remain firmly open. So, it's really just, confidence, right, that keeps people from traveling internationally. But we do notice that, since people are constantly traveling and we are able to post updates on our social media and people see that it is possible to travel because, a lot of it is also like lack of awareness that you can actually go on international trips. And so as clients travel, we feel that that kind of has like an effect on building people's confidence to inquire about trips. Um, and luckily like in the Philippines as well, our quarantine is 6 nights long, which is like around a week upon return, which a lot of people are willing to do, just to get out of the country, right? Because we've been cooped up for a year now. So I guess just to go back to your question, travel has remained open for us, and we fortunately we have had clients traveling. In fact, I have a pair of honeymooners who are on their way back to Manila from a 10-day trip from Kenya, and we have families leaving in like the next few months as well. So it's, we see that as the light at the end of the tunnel, that people are still willing to make certain taking the extra mile to to experience, being out in the wilderness now and going on safari.
I just want to go back to the original premise of this talk. Is there a difference being a woman in travel? Um, or is the way you look at trips, you organize them, you build them for clients? Are you, I don't know, is there any difference from like the male kind of, approach to travel?
I think in a sense, like I definitely think that a woman's touch is different from from how a male would approach a trip. Like in my case, aside from making sure that logistics are in place and everything like happens seamlessly, I kind of like put myself like in the position of the client and try to like imagine like how do I make this experience more romantic for them? How do I make this experience more emotional for them? Because I think it's really that emotional factor that makes a trip unique, right? It's not just like the best restaurants and the best food, but those like little things that like make you. It's those little things like those little emotional kind of feelings that you put into a trip that make it more special and make it unforgettable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was always the planner in the family. So my husband will almost do everything that I want to do other than shop. So which is fine because it's better to shop by yourself. Anyway, but there's things that I think as women that we really pay attention to. For example, I always look at the cadence of a trip, right? Um, and when I'm designing the itinerary, I play it out of my mind. I run through it the sequence. Okay, so they're having lunch. After lunch, like what's the next step? And so what's the high? What's the low? What's the medium point of the trip? And how do we end it? So those are, I think, nuances that maybe as a woman we're more inclined to pay attention to. I would say. I mean, if I'm wrong, if there's a man in here who will tell me otherwise, I'm all ears.
And
Yeah,
Shahi, what your
yeah,
experience?
yeah. From my end, I agree with what Yessa and Tessa just mentioned, but and also I would like to add, since I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a girlfriend. I feel that I have more empathy and understanding also for clients who have special requests, like caring for elderly travelers, especially for multi-generational travelers. For you have the grandmas and grandfathers joining the trips. You have to provide them the right support for the trip so they're as comfortable as possible. Adopting to families of kids of all ages, making sure we make it fun, make it family friendly and safe. Also special diets. Increasingly, I'm getting a lot of requests for special diets. So, those who have that, you just have to be, I just feel that the Woman's Touch, you're more communicative with all the suppliers, making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, right? And I've also been in their shoes as a female traveler. I've been on several solo female trips and several girlfriend getaways. So in fact, I've done trips to over 15 countries for just solo females or girlfriend getaways. So it's really fun creating those trips and just making sure they're safe, in great hands of trusted and reputable tour operators, right? And I'm also a bit more flexible, less set in my ways. So I'm more open-minded in terms of new destinations, proposing new destinations to challenge and change one's perspectives.
What would be your top tips though, because you said there are also solo female travelers, or even women traveling as a group. So what are your top safety tips or travel tips for such women?
Definitely go with a reputable company, right? I think that's the number one tip. That's the most important tip. Because if you go with a travel company that knows the continent very well, then and who has a strong relationship with partners on the ground, then you don't even really need to worry about safety at all as a female solo traveler. In fact, on my first ever solo trip ever was 5 years ago with A2A. And basically they sent me on a 2-week trip to Botswana, like, okay, go go on your own. And honestly, like, my parents were kind of like hesitant at first because it was my first, I had never gone on any trips by myself before this. But it was one of the most liberating experiences ever. And knowing that I was doing it with A2A safaris, right? Like I knew I was in good hands. So I barely even, kind of like quick glance on my itinerary and I just let like the tides and the wave carry me, and still one of the best, most rewarding trips I've ever had. And I did it alone by myself in a in a place that they often call the dark continent. So yeah, go with a reputable company. That's my number one tip.
Tessa, have you traveled? You traveled alone, right?
I did. I think the first time I traveled by myself, I went for 3 months throughout Europe. Um, Drove from Italy to France by myself, and then from France to Spain, for example. Um, which at that point I didn't think it was so crazy to do. Nothing happened towards me. Nothing happened. No danger whatsoever. The Really what that taught me was how to just get out of my shell. If you can imagine that I was in a shell. Normally, as Filipinas, we're taught culturally to not be so pushy or be out there, don't talk until you're being talked to, or something like that, like this whole shy thing. I mean, but so I was in a small village in France for like a week without talking to anybody. So like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not having a good time. I should like put my book down, not read a book while I'm having dinner, and just like, change my body language and just like allow people to start talking to me. And then that's when I started having a good time. So it's also like a good exercise for us to really just get out of ourselves. But no, nothing. No, you know, made sure that I stayed in hotels, very like in a very good locations. Make sure that the manager knows you're there, the concierge knows you're there, so you have these backup people looking out for you. Everybody knew where I was going to be, so yeah, but it was a great experience traveling solo. I mean, I highly recommend that to everyone, you know, female or male for that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to get over the eating by yourself, right? But now I guess you have your phones and all that, so you don't look so alone.
So
If
that's
you
the
have,
thing too, is that, when I was by myself, well, I didn't have a cell phone back then. But so I was reading a book. But then,
Mm.
imagine that your whole body language is your face down, you're
Yeah.
hunched over. Who's going to talk to you? Who's going to approach you? You're totally worried. You're totally giving off a sign like, don't come near me. And immediately, as soon as I said, no more books, I'm going to
Mm.
just sit up, open up, stare out, look at what's in front of me. And I started making friends and I had a great time. So just that small mind shift and body
But
language.
safari, I think, you're all fans of Africa. You've all been on safari. I think safaris on their own actually, kind of um, engender a lot of conversation and all, because you go in a
Mhm.
group, right? You go on a game drive in a
Yes.
group and all that. So
Yeah.
you have to meet people. You have to engage in conversation. So
Yeah.
that's
It's
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
why.
best trips for
Yeah,
any solo female traveler.
yeah.
Best.
You end
Yes.
up meeting
Safest also.
so many interesting people otherwise you would have never met.
Yeah.
And the bond that you form when you go on safari together and experience the wild together is, I'm getting goosebumps now. Like it really is something that's, and it's unexplainable, like the kind of connection that you form. And I met people, over the years on safari that I still keep in contact with now, like a family from the US who I've, been in touch with, just because like we went on a game night drive together, and maybe like first, I was there when they witnessed like their first, pride of lions, and it's something that it's now a bond, like a magic that you share.
You
So
know,
makes
I tell my female clients who are mothers, I said safari is the best experience for a family if you want to bond with your children because there is no Wi-Fi. They are not looking at their phones, so they have no option but to talk to you. It's great. There is no Wi-Fi in the lodge, only in the rooms, and very limited at that. It's a great experience.
Agree. I agree. So
at least there's Wi-Fi now. Because when I used to go, there was no hardly any Wi-Fi at
yeah, there are
all.
more
Even in
and
the room.
more camps are putting in Wi-Fi, but at least it's in the living rooms. Yeah, and not allowed on game drives. But
Right,
yep.
right.
But so Bambina, just to expand on tips for female travelers. So if it were me traveling solo, I want to always put myself in my client's shoes. So I agree with what Yessa said, that go with a reputable travel agent. Just don't Google it, right? Um, Go on who was referred to you personally instead of just shopping online, and interview the agent, interview them and ask about their experiences with female, about like their trips with female travelers. Ask them to share their client testimonials, or even personally introduce you to these clients, so you can interview the clients themselves. And then of course inform all your family members where you are, or what's your day-to-day itinerary, the tour operator numbers, all the safety numbers, emergency numbers, the consulate numbers, and then lastly, just use your common sense. Trust your instincts. It will always save you.
Yeah, I think also if you have a special interest, for example, I have a client who she's married now, but when she was single, um, she's very fit, very athletic. She loves riding bicycles, and she would go solo on these trips, particularly geared towards cycling. So, it's either they'd go cycling around France, but it was a special interest group, and so she found a lot of comfort in that they're not just touring, but they all are have the same interest and the same activity level. Yeah, so that also helps.
Can I go a little bit into the business of what you're doing? It, a lot of people also do. What's the value? I mean, you've already spoken a little bit about it, but there's a lot of do-it-yourself kind of travel now because everything is so accessible through the internet. So how obviously you offer a more personalized touch, but how do you then kind of make money for yourselves? How does it become a profitable business venture for you guys when people can check the prices kind of everywhere, online?
So in our case, like we don't, I the price that we sell to our clients is the same price that they would say see if they checked it out on the website themselves. So we never sell anything at above the rack rate, which is what we call the actual selling price. So in other words, like how we, and of course we're not a charity, right? It is a business. So we make our profit from our partners, but not necessarily from our clients. Where we get, each night, like I guess in simpler terms, we get it at the wholesale cost and then we extend it at retail cost to our clients. So we never, have any hidden charges, and everything is extended to clients at the same price as if they were to arrange it on their own. But we take care of all of the legwork for them, logistics, flights, transfers, all of that, technically like free of charge, right?
Okay. Is that the same business model for you, Shai?
Very
Yeah,
similar, very similar. We take the headache out of the planning, so it's totally worth booking our types of trips. We don't charge anything extra over and above what you see on the websites, and you give more with exclusive access.
Right, because we have strong relationships with our partners. So sometimes our clients, get certain access and provisions that a regular guest would not have.
So maybe I'm a little bit different. First of all, I charge a planning fee. We typically have a conversation with a client, with a prospective client, what they want to do. It's an hour long minimum, and this is the discovery process. After which I determine whether I can create a trip for them or not, and I charge them a fee for planning the trip. Okay, this makes it very intentional, and this makes it so they don't this becomes like the first step in our relationship. In the beginning, when I started my business, um, I wasn't used to charging a fee because there's no fee on the internet. Anybody can go out and do it yourself, as you said, right? And very quickly, I realized that this was not a satisfactory experience for me, that this is not how I wanted to do my business, because basically I was working for free and nobody has to work for free, right? So once they pay my fee, then I actually start planning the itinerary for them. And it's based on their budget, on what their desire is, on what their hopes are, on what they want to do. Now, being a virtuoso agent means that I can give them amenities that they normally would not get themselves. It's always a resort credit, upgrades on arrival, and a lot of times I've been able to guarantee the upgrades. Usually it's upgrades on arrival, but when I speak directly to the property, they guarantee me the upgrade. So recently a client booked a 2 bedroom and I got her a guaranteed upgrade to a 3 bedroom ocean view, which was maybe a $5,000 value. That's important. So that's where my value lies as well. It's, obviously early check in, late check out, but just VIP amenities. When they check into the room, there's always a note from me, a bottle of champagne and fruits and this and that. And that's the value that we give. And mostly it's also, I don't do transactional services. For example, if somebody comes to me and says, can you find me the cheapest hotel in so and so. Like, that's not what I do. What I do is I plan you a journey, I plan you an experience, from start to finish. And I'm always there the whole experience. I'm like your personal concierge. You're on mute, Bambina.
You get these midnight calls, these 3 a.m. in the morning calls or something.
Yeah, so there was, when I started my business, I had it was summer and it was very very busy. I had clients in Italy, one was in Greece, one was in Portugal, and I knew exactly where everyone was at that particular time of the day. And in the evening, like I couldn't sleep because I was like, what if they didn't, like I knew their itinerary by heart. Like, what if they missed their itinerary? Or else I'd get the phone call in the middle of the evening and say, like, where should I eat tonight? I mean, they're in Lisbon, right? They're calling me in New York. Where am I going to eat tonight? I said, like, okay, this is where you should go. So like that. But it's hand holding, but I love it. I love the
Mhm.
fact that they call me to say, where should I go for dinner tonight? Instead of asking their hotel concierge. I love that.
So there's obviously a level of trust that's there
Yes,
in your
as well.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
that's what makes it also very special. What makes us different is, to me, what makes me different is that I specialize in my client. I'm a generalist. I'm not an Africa specialist. I'm not a cruise specialist or a Disney specialist. I specialize in my clients. Wherever they want to go, that's where I'll take them.
mm, okay. But with the three of you, we're assuming a certain level of luxury, right? I mean, nobody ever comes to you and says, "Well, I want to rough it, all over Africa," right? So, you also get, which means a certain kind of client at a certain price range, right? So do
Yes.
you get any, is budget like a bad word for you guys?
No, it's not. It's not a bad word. It's just not. To Yessa's point, for example, they vetted all of the properties that they
Mm,
work with in Africa, right? And there's a certain level of um, Yessa, you speak to it because to me it's like luxury is can mean many different things. Not just It's not just monetary, of course, but it's also the service.
yeah.
So
Mm,
Um, Also for us, like we're very careful with like partnering with, camps and lodges that really put a huge emphasis on conservation. Right. So that's also like one thing that we take a look at instead of just luxury. But just going back to your question, is budget a bad word? For me, it's not a bad word because I would love to know how much your budget is so that I know what kind of, trip to plan for you.
right,
Sometimes I guess the challenge with, a safari planner like me is, and maybe it's also, in part of like our culture as well, like people aren't always, as transparent with how much they actually, are willing to shell out for a trip. So it's also sometimes it's a guessing game, and there is like a wide range of properties to choose from, right? From maybe $800 per person per night to $4,000 per person per night in the same country in the same area. So I actually like using, I like getting and encountering the word budget because it helps me as a
right.
designer, right? Like choose the right properties for you.
mm,
And having said that, in our portfolio, we do have a wide range of accommodation styles to choose from. So we can offer something to like a client who has, who's not necessarily wanting to splurge on an ultra lux safari, but we have ultra lux options for
those-
clients who are really like wanting, the whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, in my discovery process, at the very end of the call, I always ask the question, do you have a budget in mind for this trip that you want? Because it always goes to that, right? Like there has to be an amount that they're willing to they've thought of, that this is what I want to spend in my 10 days in Portugal or whatever. And it's my job to assess that budget, and either I can work with that, or I'll come back and say, well, maybe if we took some things out, like what's really a non-negotiable for you. But again, it's obviously our client's budget, and they're the ones who are traveling. So we work with that. I mean, so budget is not a bad word, it's a necessary word.
And to me, I agree with what everyone has said, but it all boils down to, of course, making clients happy and how do you make them happy, right? There should be an element of trust, and you really have to manage their expectations, right? Um, so when I do ask if they do have a budget, and if more often than not they will give me their budget, and I will manage their expectations accordingly. And also, if they don't have a budget, I just give them a range, and then we will work towards that. But I just, ultimately you want to make them happy. And if they do have a budget, you try your best to make them happy with your offerings.
Right.
But okay, talking about like Africa on safari and all, what is the minimum amount per person you think they should be looking at? You know, they should be budgeting if they wanted to go. And people usually here they go as a family, right? They tend to go with friends or as a family. But like let's say on a per person, I don't know, what's the minimum you'd recommend for a safari? How many nights? Yes, maybe 3 to 4
Um,
minimum in
just
one
a
camp.
just a very general answer. Our itineraries typically start at around $5,000 per person.
No
Uh,
flights, right?
I'm sorry.
No flights, no flights. Just
Uh, Again, it depends because again, if you're that's a typical start range that we kind of like want to work with so that we can design, an itinerary that still fits our standards, right? And will use the kinds of properties that we like using in our itineraries and that we would confidently send clients to. Because I mean, I'm sure that we can offer like a less expensive trip, but would we want our clients to go on that type of trip, right? So there is a price tag kind of associated with a better experience as well. But just as a quick answer, like typically their itineraries will start around like that 5 to 6,000 kind of range. And honestly, like in terms of the length of the trip, that could be anywhere from maybe like just a 2 or 3 night safari to maybe like a week long safari. Really, really depends on where we send our clients to, the types of properties, the types of accommodations, and how long they are on safari. Because I guess a lot of people don't realize that that's where a big chunk of the budget goes, right? It's on the safari experience itself and not necessarily, oh, if they spend some time in the city, a huge chunk of the budget goes to the safari portion. So if a client were wanting to go on like a 6 night safari, then that would definitely be way more than $5,000. So again, ultimately depends on um, how long they are staying in a country and the countries combined in an itinerary and the type of accommodation. So a lot of things go into play.
Yeah, what people don't realize is safaris. It's a fully inclusive experience. You pay for the guides, you pay for the vehicles, you pay for your food, you pay for the wine, you pay for the rest of the beverage, you pay for your snacks. You snack 3 times a day, um, and in fact, weight gain is the number one problem when people go on safari. So, you factor that all in and you say, yeah, that's the reason why safaris are priced this way, because everything is fully inclusive. You don't even have to open your wallet unless you want to tip at the very end of your stay.
Right. And also, what people don't realize is that built into the price is the
Yeah.
conservation fees, the national
Yes.
park fees. And that's a big component as well. They don't understand that, but that's what supports the conservation in Africa and the national parks. There are always park fees in there. That's included, but they don't see that. But and maybe they don't understand that as well.
Yeah.
That their vacation money is going towards conserving wildlife.
because also when you try to do that, that's the thing. You take out the headache of dealing with all those
Mm.
little nitty gritty things. Because I lived in South Africa, so I've done both,
Mm.
right? I've done the game lodges, I've done the self drive and everything, and it's actually a pain because you get there, you get to the entrance, and then you have to pay this, and then you get in again and pay
Mm.
something else, and I don't know. But if you do an all inclusive
Right.
thing,
Everything's taken care of
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
headache out of it,
Yeah.
At cost too. Like we'll extend it to you at cost, but we'll just like prepay everything for you so that you don't have
Mm.
to worry about it.
Yeah, yeah. So the three of you are Africa lovers, and tell me why. I mean, why don't you explain to when we have more and more actually clients, I mean, members and friends and all that, they're all that Africa experience is like one of the bucket list destinations, right? So what is it about Africa then that you find so, I mean, it's different because I live there, right? I mean, I love the whole safari experience, but you know, after a while for me, it's like, okay, another lion eating a giraffe. Okay, you know. So
Lucky
I don't mean
you.
to sound the
Lucky
same, but you know,
you.
I've seen it so many times, right? And you wake up and the giraffe's right there in your face, which is fine, which is really fun, right? But for someone coming from overseas and that's such a foreign experience, right? That what is it that you love about Africa that you recommend it all the time also?
For me, aside from like the wildlife experience, the culture is also so unique. And you know, coming from the Philippines and going to Africa, I noticed that a lot of similar cultures as well, which I find like really interesting. You know how they're, you know, most of them are actually like breadwinners, helping their families and helping pay for someone's education. Like I think what makes me go back to Africa also is like I feel like it's an extended home in terms of like their traditions and their culture. Um, and each country offers such a different experience, right? Like I guess people think that, oh, safari, it's typically you go on game drives, you look for lions, elephants, you know, rhinos, etc. But I mean, if you go to Rwanda and Uganda, like the experience there is completely different. There you like, you know, go hiking and go trekking to look for gorillas, to or to like see golden monkeys and chimpanzees, like in Tanzania. So it's such a diverse offering that you can go back to Africa every year and have a completely different experience. And every day on Game Drive is very different too, as long as you open your eyes, right? As long as you keep your eyes open, you'll see something very interesting, very different every day. And just, I mean, the landscape is stunning. Sundowners, you know, after a game drive, you have like a gin and tonic while you watch the sun setting. And one of the best sunsets for me are in Africa. So there's just something for everyone. And, you know, there's physical, there's emotional, there's wildlife, there's culture. Yeah, it's an experience that's pretty hard to beat in my books.
For me, there's nothing like it that you can compare to. It's every experience is unique. Every hour you're out there is unique. It can be totally nothing, and then you round a corner, you see mating giraffes. So it's sort of the reason why it's so addictive is because it's sort of like gambling. You don't know what to expect next, and then you hit the jackpot, and you think, oh my gosh, I hit the jackpot, and then maybe I'll hit the jackpot next corner or the next day, and you're this. It's the anticipation of being out there in the wilderness, which you can't find anywhere else in the world. It's not a city where like, okay, I'll just hit this museum and go to the shopping district. You know it's predictable. You know it's going to be there, right? But in Africa, things change in a second. So that's the addictive part. It's and also it's just the pure experience of being out there, the clean air, the birds chirping, the sunsets. Um, and meeting people that you're not supposed to meet, but you're all thrown there together by coincidence.
Well, and I guess there's something primal, obviously, about being in Africa and seeing these animals and in
Yeah.
their natural habitat as well, and you know, eating other animals.
So I think I'm the African newbie in this group. I took my first trip to Africa just last year. In October, I went to Tanzania, and and then I went to Zanzibar, and then we went to Uganda. So I was in Africa for 6 weeks, first time during COVID
Wow.
last year, and I'm coming back for more. The landscape is incredible. It's nothing like I've ever seen before. Just the just this the horizon. I've never seen such a bigger horizon before. So that's pretty amazing. Especially when you live around buildings in New York, right? And just being in their territory. You know, you're the visitor in the wildlife. They're not visiting, you are. So there's a lot of respect that you have to learn, a lot of things that you have to understand about animals and how they behave and how they act because you're just visiting. And then there's also frankly, the lifestyle of the safari lifestyle, the lodges, the hot water bucket showers and tented camps. I mean, those are frankly, the open game drives. Those are all pretty cool. Yeah.
And the outfits, right? The out of Africa.
I mean, the outfits. Listen, I mean,
You can pretend
there's,
characteristic.
I believe that, when one travels, your clothes need to have a sense of place, right?
Mm.
So, are you going to the gym? Why are you going? Why you look like you're going to the gym when you're in Africa? No, like, come on, you know, dress up a little bit. That's all. Sense of place. That's all.
Yeah. You want to add anything, Shai?
Oh, none for me for now.
Okay, but then the other thing I was going to say is there's no one Africa, right? I mean, it's unfair to actually say like as a monolith, this is Africa because every
Yeah.
country is different, so you get different experiences. So which one of the African countries or destinations is your favorite?
Well, for me, I went to Botswana for my honeymoon in 2004. So that was my first foray into Africa. So I think it's because of that, Botswana will always be my favorite. It's because it's my honeymoon destination and it just opened everything up for me. In fact, when I was choosing between Botswana and Australia for my honeymoon, and my husband wanted Australia, and I said, no, I think we can go to Australia anytime. But Botswana, I think this is special. It's really for a milestone celebration, which is our honeymoon. And we haven't looked back ever since. I mean, when we came back from our honeymoon, we started on our own doing slideshows and presentations to people in our living room just to educate them, like as if we were like the experts already. But we went to 3 different camps, 3 nights each camp, and we just fell in love with it. And we just started inviting people to our living room and started doing presentations. And because back then in 2004, it was considered off the beaten track, even in Hong Kong, where the people are so well traveled. That's it. So that kickstarted everything. So yeah, Botswana will be my first love.
And Yessa?
Botswana was my first too. So you never forget your first, right? So yeah, it has a special place in my heart. But then again, whenever I explore, like when I went after I went on safari to Botswana, I also went on safari in South Africa on the same trip, and I was floored as well, right? Like nothing. So again, each experience is so different. That I wouldn't say like one is absolute like better than the other, because I had sightings in South Africa that I didn't have in Botswana, or experience the landscape in Kenya and Tanzania are like incredible, like out of Africa. You feel like Meryl Streep kind of experience. But yeah, because Botswana is my first, I would say probably Botswana is one of my favorites, and also it's stunning. It's super pristine.
So you've only been to Tanzania, and then your
Tanzania, Uganda. Next
Uganda.
in May, I'm going to Cape Town, and then I'm going to Namibia. So not enough countries yet to really tell you which one is my favorite. Everything has been amazing, but once I've like finished the whole continent, then I'll answer your question.
Okay. Well, I think we're gonna close it. But before we close, I just want to say, I guess, based on what the 3 of you have said, travel is fine now. It's open. Choose your destination carefully. You're all here to help. I just wanted to ask before we close, where would you go next? Then, start, Shai.
First of all, I want to go to Manila to visit family and friends, because we have the world's worst strictest quarantine, 21 days in a hotel here in Hong Kong. So it's nearly impossible for us to travel. So first things first, go to Manila, visit family and friends. The second, I think, Japan. I would like to do it more private, stay in a private ryokan, stay in a private onsen, dip in a private onsen and eat kaiseki cuisine. And when travel finally opens, all the borders, and I'm vaccinated, I think I would love to explore the Caucasus and Central Asia, all the stands, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan.
You were just in Iran, right? I mean, that was your last trip before the lockdown?
Yes, so my last trip that I led before the lockdown was in Iran, which was a stunning experience. And I would recommend it to everybody because there's so many Americans going there, French, Italians, Filipinos is visa free. Visa on arrival for Filipinos. And it's so safe and the food's amazing and people are so friendly. And of course, Persian kingdom, right? History. Yeah. So now I want to explore and I want to go to Central Asia and extend it further.
And that was the last foreign trip you took?
The last foreign trip actually was Niseko, Japan. We went skiing February last year. But before that, the last trip I led was Iran.
Okay. And what about you, Tessa?
So there's a lot.
You have a whole schedule, right?
No, I have a full schedule this year, so I'm very excited. I'm going to Colombia next month, sorry. Colombia, and then I said I'm going to Cape Town and then Namibia after that, and then trips in the US and then hopefully Australia in October. So this year is pretty quite full already, and I'm very happy to be traveling. So
yes,
for me, Rwanda is still on my bucket list. I was actually supposed to go last year, but COVID happened. But easy answer is Japan. I really miss, because it's also like a quick trip from the Philippines. I miss skiing and Niseko. I miss Japanese food.
What was your last trip before the lockdown?
My gosh, my last trip was Thailand. Actually, I spent. No, sorry, my last trip was Bali. But what was Indonesia? Spent a few days in Uluwatu with my friends. So that's another country that I really, really miss.
Yeah.
Last February I went back to the Philippines for my high school reunion.
Yeah, I saw you. That's
right?
Yeah.
And then we went to Cambodia, and then we went back to New York. Then everything shifted, and everything.
Yeah, but in February we were all still let's wear masks.
Right.
Nobody knew it was gonna take this long, and then a year later we're still homebound. Well, except for you, but yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. It was nice to see you all. And this talk will be up on YouTube in a day or so under the Manila House channel. And if you want to refer to it, just log on to YouTube, click on YouTube and click on the Manila House channel and you'll see it. So thank you to our three panelists today for sharing their experiences. And I'm sure they've incited a lot of wanderlust again. I mean, we're all looking forward to being able to travel when it's safe too. So you have three ladies who will help you with your travels whenever you're ready, and do give them a call and check them out. And I'm sure they'd be happy to help you. So thank you very much, Sai.
Thank you, Bambina.
Thank you, Bambina. And nice meeting you, Tessa and Yessa.
Nice to meet you too, Tessa, Yessa.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you again.
Good night. Good night from New York.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay.
Good afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.